Rental housing cooperatives. Housing cooperatives which I visited in Toronto in Canada, in 1989, prided themselves on having eliminated what they saw as being the high price of individual home ownership and the unpredictable rent increases, insecurity and anonymity that come with living in rental housing. Unlike rents, they argue, the monthly housing charge in a co-op rises only with increases in operating and mortgage servicing costs. There are no profits or refinancing costs to be paid for. In most areas, over time, the co-op housing charges will fall below the rents charged for private rental accommodation of the same quality. Co-op housing, in the view of the co-ops, gives residents an equal voice in the decisions affecting their homes. There is no landlord. Co-op housing, it is argued, provides a unique opportunity for people to build a community and to share and assist each other in ways beyond meeting their housing needs. Democratic control, it is said finally, guarantees that money budgeted for maintenance is spent on maintenance, and not skimmed off for extra profit while the property deteriorates. All these Canadian housing cooperatives were independent, self-directing, incorporated organizations. The people living in the cooperative apartments, townhouses or freestanding homes made up their memberships. Each resident member had one vote on the affairs of the cooperative. Every year, the members elected from among themselves a board of directors to manage the cooperative. The monthly charges paid by members represented the cost to the cooperative of its mortgage, property taxes, reserves for future repairs and other operating costs. Since the members themselves owned the property, there was no requirement for a profit margin. Members made a small down payment for shares or a membership fee, together with a maintenance guarantee in their first and last month's housing charges, when they took up residence. Government assistance was provided in the form of interest-free loans and mortgage guarantees under federal and provincial housing programs. As it was also through interest-free loans for up to 35% of capital costs under a provincial housing program. The government required in return that at least 25% of each cooperative's members should be eligible by income through welfare rental subsidies. The Woodsworth Cooperative, where much of my visit was spent, and to which I have since returned, was in compliance with this requirement, and 44% of the residents of the nearby Windmill Line Cooperative were subsidy recipients. A recent social audit of the Woodsworth Cooperative established that 19% of its members had annual incomes under $10,000. As did 12% incomes between $10,000 and $19,900. 27% incomes between $20,000 and $20,900. 19% incomes between $30,000 and $39,900. And 17% incomes in excess of $40,000, including some in excess of $100,000. 17% of the Woodsworth residents were aged between 19 and 29, as were 38% between 30 and 39. 26% between 40 and 49. 10% between 50 and 59. And 9% over 60. In the view of 84% of the Woodsworth residents, the cooperative had a good mix of members from different ethnic, cultural and national backgrounds, and the cooperative was currently considering a recommendation from its social audit committee that a unit should be set aside for a refugee family. 85% of the members felt that their housing charges were just right. The quality of the accommodation was rated as good or excellent by 88% of the residents, as was the maintenance service by 73% of the residents. Good neighborhood was a reason for living in the cooperative mentioned by 85% of the residents, as was low-cost housing by 78%. inability to own private housing by 69%, and security of tenure by 66%. 74% of all parents reported that the cooperative was a good place to bring up children, as did 82% of single parents that it was a good place to be a single parent, and 95% of senior citizens that it was a good place for them. 40% of the members had run for office within the cooperative, although the 31% of households with incomes under $20,000 accounted for only 11% of current and former office holders. It is at least open to question whether any survey of Australian housing, public or private, would disclose comparable causes for satisfaction. The reality of our situation is that a significant switch of resources from public to cooperative housing would be highly cost-effective. Social dysfunction would be massively reduced. Rental housing in Australia currently is crying out for the mutualist approach.